What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining me for another BG Wednesday live podcast. You guys noticed I swapped up the look a little bit. I gave Tim Pool his beanie back. I got my hair cut. And, this is where we're at tonight, guys. So it's just been hot as hell here in Colorado, like it has been the past few weeks. But nonetheless, let's dive right into it. I've got a dream team here with me tonight. Two very special guests I'm about to bring on, who kind of see things the way we're seeing them at this point in time. I made a post earlier today on X talking about how something very strange has happened in the conspiracy community, especially for individuals who've been following it for a long time, such as myself and the two people I'm going to bring on. And we're going to break down exactly what the hell is so strange and what's going on. So first, I want to welcome to the stage Ryder Lee. He's been on the show before. What's up, man? Thanks again for being here tonight.
What's up, dude? I'm excited to be here, my friend. I got my kick 'em in the cabal sunglasses going on. I can only kick 'em in the cabals with these sunglasses on. And we're in a once in a lifetime show here today with my good friend Shane and you. So I'm very much looking forward to it.
Thank you, man. And I got Mr. Shane Sador. He has not been on my show, but I have been on his. And welcome to your first time here, man. How's it going?
Absolutely spectacularly, if that's a real word. If it's not, it is now. But it's
one. Just created it, dude.
Yeah. I'm telling you, man. So, all right, guys, it's a pleasure to have you here. Let's dive right into this. I mean, so both of you guys are very similar to me. You have been observing this situation for quite some time, and you've seen a lot of weirdness start to emerge from this, especially on the side of the conspiracy and the truther community. To me, it seems like, at a time we had, at least in my eyes, we had somewhat before 2020, what I would call a somewhat unified, somewhat credible community at that point. I mean, there were somewhat people trying to do the right things, but, of course we had things here and there, but then it seems like after 2020 or even potentially before, we had a lot of weird things get thrown into the mix and the water's muddied, it seems to be. So let's start off with Ryder. Ryder, what do you think is going on, man? What do you think? Why do you think the deterioration of the conspiracy / truther community has become what it is? And why do you think it's almost kind of assimilated itself into almost a mainstream media kind of category at this point?
Well, it's because we are the media now. Like, mainstream media has failed. It is not pulling in the numbers that it used to pull in. And now we are the media. And it's almost exactly like what's happening with regular TV as well, with all the streaming services and stuff. Like, it used to be regular TV. You sit down and you watch it at a specific time. If you don't watch it at a specific time, you're not able to see it anymore, or you have to wait a while to see it. And what they did is they took, for a really cheap price, they were like, okay, well, $6.99 you can get Netflix. That's where the baseline Netflix started out, was $6.99, around that area. Because I remember when I first got it, when it first came out. And now they've switched that. They've turned that into, now you have to pay more to get that premium Netflix, but they've given you a base tier. And the base tier is with ads. Right? And what is regular TV? Regular TV made money because of the ads. It made money because of everything that could be promoted on that TV show, on the news, on all of those, watching a movie on regular TV. And now, for the same price that you were getting before, now you get the ad version of it. And that's how they've all done. That's how like Peacock is. That's how Hulu is. That's how Netflix is. That's how HBO is. You get the low tier. You can pay the same amount that it was when it first started, but now you're going to get bombarded with freaking stupid pharmaceutical ads, cancer ads, HPV, freaking all these ridiculous pharmaceutical things that have absolutely nothing. Have either of you ever watched an ad on TV and then thought, oh, I immediately need to go ask my doctor about this. You know how at the end of every pharmaceutical commercial, they're like, ask your doctor about Lexapro. Ask your doctor if this is right for you. Has anybody ever watched an ad and then immediately went and asked their doctor if they can be put on this medication? It's the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. Like, and I've never watched an ad either where I want to go buy that product. Like, no Bounty commercial has ever convinced me to buy Bounty, not toilet paper, but towel paper. You know, no, Dawn dishwashing liquid has never made me want to wash off a freaking bird that's been involved in an oil spill. You know, like Dawn dishwashing commercials wash everything besides the dishes.
I know you're out. It's almost like, I want to say the pharmaceutical, it's like a glorified trap house, the pharmaceutical commercials, man, because I'll always remember the Robin Williams skit where he's like talking about his doctor coming up to him. He's like, hey Robin, I got this new shit I want you to try. Let me slide you a sample pack of this, and if you really like this, you know, call me and I'll hook you up. It's almost like a glorified trap house when we're talking about that kind of stuff. I mean, or glorified drug dealing, honestly, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's what it really seems like. And I kind of went off on a little tangent there on,
No, you're all good.
on media and stuff, but that's really how it is. But when it comes to the community, we've seen this evolving nature of the community. And I was listening back in like the early 2000s and how far it's gone. And you know, let's just make conspiracies interesting again. There's literally not, it's a regurgitation after regurgitation. It's old information is being regurgitated for a new group of people. And me and Shane have talked about this several times on my show, and it's CERN, it's HARP, it's Tartaria, it's the World's Fairs, it's Antarctica, it's directed energy weapons. It's like we get these things that pop up like every couple of months. There's some kind of new event that is then related back to one of those 5 things. And it's a constant revolving door of those things. And then people will dig up old videos that people have seen and heard 1,000 times that's been in this community for a really long time, and then repost them as if it's something brand new.
Uh-huh.
Like all the time. I just seen that one guy. I just seen a video earlier today on Facebook of, I forget what that guy's name. It was like in 95 or whatever, where he was sitting down and like talking about the reptilians. I'm sure Shane, you know what I'm talking about, where he's like, the Arcturians came in and took over the reptilians, and then the Arcturians didn't do a good enough job, and they had to send in the galactic reinforcements of the Pleiadians, and then the Pleiadians came in, and now the Pleiadians are in control, and the reptilians are really strong and powerful, and it's like a 3-hour long conversation, but they just clipped out a little thing of that and then put it online, and then acting like it's something like brand new. And that's just like a common thing that has just happened over and over again. And the degeneration of the content within the community is always related to something that's happened before. It's wild.
It seems like it's just consistently being, no, I'm with you. It seems like it's consistently being recycled. And I've noticed this as well, that the things that are getting recycled, they're adding like these new nuances, like you're saying, try to make them seem new, try to make it seem like it's information that, you know, a lot of us haven't heard before. On top of that, also, man, they're just, you know, I kind of blame TikTok for this. I don't know if I can completely blame TikTok for this 100%, but they've been the ones pumping out like the most ridiculous things, like, you know, as far as like the most ridiculous, like fear mongering. I mean, we all talked about what's going to happen for the EMS test that happened back however long ago, how it was going to shoot these neutrinos through you, and it was going to, you know, map your body, and all of the people who got the vaccine, it was going to activate the nanotechnology inside of them, and they were all going to be. I know. That's where I kind of, you know, I don't want to place blame on TikTok, because I know it's a lot of people in the community, but that just seems to be where it's been like focused on that. Now, Shane, one thing I want to talk to you about real quick is something that you brought up to me when I was on your show about how the conspiracy community has been infiltrated for quite some time, even before the days of the internet. So why don't you elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, without going too much into the weeds, because I know that some of your viewers don't know who I am, but I've been a whistleblower since I was like 2016. I come from what you guys all call the Illuminati, even though that's not the real word for it. And I used to work doing disinformation for them, specifically related to UFOs, because they were trying to cover up my lab experimentations and things like that. And then eventually I got a pretty good look at what they were doing for this blossoming. It used to be kind of in, conference halls or basements, some dude's basement, or maybe a library or something like that. But then we got the internet. We started to get forums and chat rooms and things like that. But back before the internet even, it was already being infiltrated with basically disinformation. So something that the Illuminati did was dump all of the truth to people going back, 50, 60 years now, and allowed researchers to do what they do with it, right? And then steered those people very, very carefully towards curated conclusions, let's put it that way. And then propped up the people who came to the correct conclusions to start what the original alternative community was, which was prior to the internet, right? And then when I started to really look at it was the early days with all the early whistleblower interviews and everything. I don't want to name channels and stuff like that, but like when it really started in the forums, and I was a moderator of a popular one, things like that. And I was all still working for them at the time and reporting back to them on what I was seeing. And at that time I used to fight with them a lot because I thought we were, when I say we, the public, were smarter than we have turned out to be with all of this information. But they predicted that this is what would have happened, right? And I can remember talking to researchers back in 2010 about how one of their big plans was to try and criminalize conspiracy theory and really demonize the alternative community as it was, because they knew that kind of what Ryder was just saying, a mainstream alternative community was coming, right? The intellectual dark web, people like Joe Rogan, people like us, all kind of combined into one thing. They knew that was coming. And so they wanted to make sure that there was so much mud in the water that we were doing exactly what we've been doing, right? Which is creating conspiracy snowballs and conspiracy burritos, and never actually going back and looking at the center of that snowball and the foundation of the house that we built on that land and things like that, to really find out if any of this stuff was ever true in the first place. Right. And, I've been saying that for a long time, and people have been getting really mad at me, but, year after year after year after year, there's just more proof in the result that that's exactly what's going on here. And so since 2020, when the thing happened, we've had this big influx of people waking up, right? Which the community before that, as you said, was sort of unified. We had our problems, but we did have a pretty solid community at that point in time. We were all waiting for that. Right, we were waiting for the event that was going to wake everybody up, and then we were going to have the promised land. We were going to get what we wanted. Well, we got the event. But what did we do? Well, we made it so that all those people who came into this world ended up stuck in a perpetual rabbit hole that they'll never find their way out of, because they've got a handful of truth and a fistful of getting alien probed on Mars, and they don't know what is real, so they could kind of just do this and they go right back to where they were, right? Or they end up ditching that cult, the mainstream cult, if you will, and just joining one of the many cults we offer within our community, because we have those too. We did a great job of building cults within our community. It was really impressive. It was almost like we were trained to do it or something. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that we were. And and now here we are, where it was supposed to be the only kind of safe haven from the mainstream clown show, and now it's just as much as a clown show, right? Like, Ryder dropped some names of different things that have gone through, like the QAnon thing. I was warning about that years before it ever happened. Like, this is going to happen. I don't know what they're going to call it, but everyone's going to love it. It's going to come up on a forum just like this. It's going to seem all mysterious and cryptic, and everyone's going to buy its nonsense. And it's going to be the beginning of the end for us, because they're going to end up creating domestic terrorism based on that. And here we are. We have domestic terrorism based on that. But I'm still just some guy who, I'm a little bit Chevy Chase today, meaning I'm in a little bit of pain. And so I might be a little bit cranky because they're hitting me with the DEWs to mind control me to tell you these things. Right?
You heard it here first. Shane's been hitting with the dew. Mountain Dew. He's getting hit with the Mountain Dew Code Red, boy. You can't come back from the Mountain Dew Code Red.
He's getting Baja blasted, man. But no, Shane, I think you described it perfectly, man. Because yes, we were all talking about the event, like, and we thought that after that event, like, it was going to just be a whole new thing. And you are absolutely right. You summed it up perfectly. That was our mentality, but boy, were we wrong. And the thing that you brought up about QAnon too, man, is it's still going on. You still have people believing this. I see it on X all the time. They have all these different Q accounts, man, and they'll post like, in 48 hours, this is going to happen, or this event, or this event's going to occur. And then you see like all of these people buying into it, man. It almost seems like, like the I guess you could say the newer individuals who have quote unquote woken up, they're just dying to grasp at anything that they possibly can. They're taking advantage of that. So, I mean, on to what the next thing, guys. I mean, so what do you think personally? All right, personally at this point in time, do you feel is the biggest thing that they're doing to muddy the waters? And I'm going to honestly say I feel it's the conspiracy psyops. Like you guys were talking, I call them psyop sandwiches at this point. Like I think I told Ryder that, and the reason why I call it a psyop is it's layered. Like you have the two pieces of bread, which are the psyop, but then you have the psyop in the lettuce too, and then you have the psyop in the tomato, and then you get to the meat, and the meat's full of psyops. I mean, what is your guys' opinion? I mean, where do you think really that this all started to go downhill, aside from the potential infiltration? I mean, do you think it's human nature and human behavior, or was there any other kind of driving factors behind it?
Well, to follow up on what Shane was talking about, which I think was really important when Shane said that when you track back all these things to their original source, you come to the conclusion that they were never real to begin with. And unfortunately, that is the case. I mean, that's 100% true. I've done an entire series of UFO doomsday cults on my channel. I'm doing a series right now on the legends of ufology, and going back and looking at what everybody talks about now within the community, within the New Age community, within the conspiracy community, within ufology. It can all be tracked back through all of these UFO cults. Everything that they've talked about before, going as far back as the early 30s, is just been changed and molded and shifted and turned into something just slightly different than what was being talked about before. And that's a really important thing to understand. And then when you take into the Paul Benowitz case and what was done to Paul Benowitz and the misinformation and the deception surrounding him, and what all came up out of that, so many different things came out of the Paul Benowitz case that are still regurgitated to this very day, including a contract with extraterrestrials and the military that came directly out of this misinformation and deception ran on Paul Benowitz from the NSA and Air Force Office of Special Investigations. That the cattle mutilation stuff is connected to aliens and UFOs. That came from Paul Benowitz as well. A secret underground military facility in New Mexico came from Paul Benowitz too. And then it gets shaped and molded and then turned into something and then you got Bill Cooper that took that thought from Paul Benowitz and then turned it into a contract that Eisenhower signed with aliens. It was no longer the military that signed the contract with the extraterrestrials. It became Eisenhower that signed the contract with extraterrestrials. And it's unbelievable. And people don't really want to look at that type of stuff because they've been so locked into the lore and the mythology of UFOs and aliens, which UFOs and aliens are a big part of the conspiracy community, whether people really want to recognize it or not. It is a large chunk. And because normally whenever people, it's like you can take anything that's been blamed on aliens and extraterrestrials and you can just replace that with humans and you get the exact same thing. Everything that's been talked about that extraterrestrials are doing is what humans are doing to other humans, is what governments are doing to their own people, to their own population. It's what the CIA is doing. It's what the NSA is doing. It's what all these three-letter organizations are doing to their own people. That's like the alien human hybrids. Okay, well, we just had one of the largest border crisis in U.S. history. What are those people considered? They're considered aliens, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Well, if they're what?
Newcomers.
Newcomers into the community. But if I were to travel to a different country, like Shane, if I were to go to Canada, I would be considered an alien because I'm not from that land. I don't live there. I'm an alien to your land. Same as if someone comes from another country into the United States, they are an alien. And then what happens when those aliens breed and mix with people from that native land? They create alien hybrids, right?
It's true. It's true though.
It's an alien invasion, but it's not an alien invasion from outer space. It's an alien invasion from across the border.
I would, dude, I'm telling you, and the one thing I want everybody to consider about what Ryder's saying, and you know how I talk about human psychology and human nature a lot on this channel. I mean, that is a psychology of the government. Blame it on something else, get people to look in a different direction than what you're doing. And like I said, I agree with Ryder. I do think that a lot of what we see as extraterrestrial narrative that's being perpetuated in the mainstream is by our government, 100%. So I agree with that wholeheartedly. Shane, what do you think? What do you think is kind of the worst thing going on with this right now? I know you wanted to talk about the person we can't talk about, but you can go ahead and talk about them all you want.
Well, definitely that's not the biggest problem.
I know that's not the biggest.
By far away from the biggest problem, even though people like to believe it's the biggest problem. No, yeah, just kind of following on what Ryder said, like he's talked about how the earliest UFO stories have been adapted over time, but those UFO stories were adapted from other types of lore and folktale that had to do more with entities and spirits than it did with aliens too. Like all of those same cults existed before we had the word alien to throw in there. In fact, that was just a really clever twist and made people a lot of money along the way. So this has been something that we've been doing for a long time because it facilitates cults. Let's just be real about it, right? And going back to the foundation of things is important. Like we might have learned recently with mathematics. Let's say that you have the equation where you have to multiply 1 times 1 and then you have to add 2. Well, if you listen to Terrence Howard, then you're going to get that equation wrong because you're going to multiply 1 times 1 wrong, right? And so even if you add 2 correctly to that outcome, your answer is still wrong. And that's the alternative community. Is like going all the way back. Someone said that 1 times 1 was 2, and we continued all the math from there. Right? and that was it. And for the most case, that is true. And what Ryder said about aliens, the other thing I brought up is the reverse of that, which is how long does a species have to be here before they're just native to this planet?
That's
because when we talk about the Anunnaki story, if we were to just kind of take it at face value and they were here for thousands of years, who's the alien at that point? Aren't but this is just something that we do because it works. And I mean, I do have firsthand knowledge, but I don't even need to rely on that at this point in time because it's so obvious to just point to everything as it's happening and you can see what they're doing. Having a fear of an enemy has always been important to the country you guys live in, for sure, right? As an example. And what was that Reagan speech about how if we had one enemy that we could all unite around, right? Then
or for an enemy from off-world that would cause the Earth, the globes. Yeah.
But of course, we also really had to get rid of the communists. We really had to get rid of the Nazis before that. We really needed to get rid of the communists. And then we really needed to get rid of the Soviets, right? And how did they use all of that fear propaganda against their public? We can look at it with hindsight now, and it's pretty clear all the way that they did that. They use aliens in no different capacity. They use it as the same type of psyop. And what's even better about that is it lets them get away with testing all kinds of stuff that they're not telling us that they're testing. right? And that
That is true.
we don't understand. Like we can have a really early prototype for a NASA outfit land in Alabama one day and have a distraught police officer take some photos of them, and we think that it's an alien. I'm kidding, Ryder. But you know, things like that. I think
Your mic was muted, bro. Bro.
Bro, I
What do you-
love the Alabama Metal Man. Stop talking shit, Shane. Alabama Metal Man is real.
But that's what I mean. It could just as easily have been that. And, you
Yeah.
know, with a lot of the stuff that we're seeing now, that's that talking plasma technology that they've been keeping a secret for a while. That's those unmanned crafts being driven around, drones being driven around by AI that they've been talking about. And guys, just look at the way that they reveal this stuff. Like it comes out of nowhere. Right. And these things don't come out of nowhere. They have like a 7 to 14 year period before they could even start testing it. And then they have to test it for a long time before it comes out of nowhere. And that's where the programs came in, was all of this testing that they were doing. Right. And we understand, like we hear about it in Nazi Germany, right? The end of World War, all the Nazi scientists doing all those. It wasn't just them. Russia was doing it. China was doing it. Japan was doing it. The Americans were doing it. The Canadians were doing it. Everybody was doing it. Everyone continued doing it too. The only thing that happened there is we got to take a group of them and distribute them into all the other places that were doing it already too. And that has been what they've been doing all along. And it's leading to all this technology that we see coming out of nowhere, right? And, you know, through my experience, I saw thousands of people hooked up to this type of technology, and I know of 0 people who went to outer space. Right? And since coming out of all of that, I've seen all of that technology hit the public, and I've seen 0 people go to space. So, you know, I don't know what else to say about that.
That's interesting, man. We're gonna say Ryder, go right ahead.
Well, just to piggyback off of what Shane was saying about Canada doing these kinds of experiments, I mean, it's heavily documented that Dr. Ewan Cameron at McGill University in Canada, who was a MK Ultra contractor, he was being funded by the CIA, and he could erase people's memories through torturous methods. He would drug the patient, he would electroshock them, sleep deprivation, prolonged sleep through the use of other drugs like benzodiazepine and a whole host of other barbiturate sleep aids. And then he would implant new memories. So we'd erase the person's thoughts and memories and who they thought that they were through a process that was called depatterning. That just I just listed the things that were done in that depatterning process, and then he would do something that's called psychic driving, where he would go in and the official terminology of what psychic driving is, which it could be a bunch of different things, but I'm going to tell you the official one is that they would put in a looped audio message. So they would have like a tape recorder after the subject had been depatterned. They would take in a tape recorder, and with a looped audio message, anything could have been on the looped audio message. It could have been, you were in a secret space program fighting aliens in space for 20 years. You got injured and you had all this high technology of doing all this stuff, blah, 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 which I think is the very rudimentary thing that of what Sheen is talking about now with the programs. It's a very rudimentary way of doing it. That's how it was done in the beginning, was like with a taped audio message to implant thoughts and ideas and beliefs into the subjects, had to get them to believe in something that didn't even happen. So you completely erase their identity, and then you put a new identity directly into their head. And now you can just, take that and replace it with a TV screen, right? It's no longer a tape recorder. Now it's a TV screen. So now they're getting a visual and an audio message. So that's just, putting it into their head even more. And then you get a device that goes over their head. And then you also have the screen. So then you're getting double even more. And then it turns into some sort of VR simulated virtual reality, is the most high-tech version of the process that really slams into the person's psyche. All of these false memories and these this completely false reality identity that is just driven into their head at enormous levels because they 100% believe that it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And we get the Montreal experiments and things like that thrown under the bus, just like with the Nazi scientist example, so that people are like, oh, well, we found out about it. They stopped doing it. They wouldn't be doing that to all of us now, would they? Right? Which is where we're at now, is like through all of that experimentation, I've been saying for a while, like I started to notice it in around 2018 and really get bad at 2020, but they've been MK altering the public, and they're doing a great job of it. It's working, which I'm sure we'll get into too.
Oh,
well, I mean, that was just important for me to say because there is, Shane, he kind of jumps to the end with the VR and the whole technology aspect, but there's a whole evolution of it, and the evolution of it started with these MK Ultra programs that were being done in Canada, being done in the United States, being done at universities. I mean, whole wings of hospitals were open to run these experimentations on these people. And another misnomer is that it was just all LSD. It wasn't all just LSD. There was reportedly at least 150 drugs that was being tested on these patients. And Sidney Gottlieb, which was the face of the MK Ultra programs in the United States before it was supposedly shut down, had a brother, and his brother's name was David Gottlieb, and he was a plant biologist. Why has nobody looked into that? You got a guy that's the head of the CIA that's doing all this experimentation on all these people using all these different substances, normally CIA designer drugs, and his brother is a plant biologist?
That is interesting.
The psychology I was pointing to is like what Ryder said about the evolution. They threw it under the bus early, right? Like maybe at the TV screens, like Clockwork Orange style is where they kind of threw it under the bus. Yeah, they never mentioned, everything that followed that, which has been progressive and does get to the type of technology that they're talking about having now, right? Like once again, didn't come out of nowhere. But sorry, I'll let you continue.
No, man. That's useful information. I think it really brings to light, I've talked about how we have to have discernment with everything at this point. We have to really, truly, and at least in my eyes, that's part of being a sovereign human being, is to have this discernment. But it seems like now, getting on to the next talking point, that all discernment has fallen out the window when it comes to this community, man. It's like we cannot be honest anymore. We cannot be objective anymore. And and when we try to bring what we feel is actual true objective information to the table, we're chastised for it. And it seems like, of course, I'm sure you guys can attest this was all done by design, but is there also a human nature component to this too? Because when we see, when you get a lot of, I'm going to use a polite word, not too bright people in a large group, you know what I mean? A lot of interesting things start to go down. And I think mob mentality and groupthink starts to showcase itself. So, what is your thoughts on this, Ryder? Because this is something that we talk about a lot. It's like you cannot be honest in this community, and you cannot be objective in this community anymore.
You really can't, and that's the issue. Is you know that you're really on to something when you're just getting attacked and like trolled like all the time. You know what I mean? Like that's just like a part of it. You're hitting a nerve with people. Now that doesn't mean that everything that you're seeing is 100% truth, because nobody has 100% truth. A lot of times people are talking about a little bit of speculation stuff, which is also important, but it's also important to say, oh, well, this is just speculation. This is theorizing. This is, something that it can't be proven, because if you don't, then you're just contributing to the deception and the myths and the disinformation that is already out there. It's like what Bill Moore was talking about that I just covered in this 5-hour long lecture that he was giving to the MUFON conference in 1989. I mean, he's laying it all out there. He's like, this is all this bullshit. It's nonsense. If you strip away the fluff, you basically just have the Paul Benowitz case, and we know what was going on with the Paul Benowitz case. And it was an unbelievable thing. And he hit so many good points in that discussion and in that lecture, and people hated it. They hated it. They booed him. They did not like it. They wanted him off of the stage. At one point, they were turning off the lights on Bill Moore to tell him to get off of the stage, and people were like booing. And then they had to get the runner of the conference to come up there and be like, I'm very disappointed in some people in this crowd right now, and they letting him continue. But then they just start turning off the lights, and that's just like par for the course here when you strip away a lot of the nonsense and a lot of the garbage and a lot of the deception, and you get down to the root of it. People don't want to hear it because it's like like an awakening that people talk about within the spiritual community, where they feel like they've been lied to their entire life. Well, it's like realizing that you've been lied to your entire life, thinking that you know more things and know more about the way that the reality works, and then getting hit with a sledgehammer over your head, and then realizing that those years that you spent trying to figure out things is also a lie. It's a lie within a lie, and they don't want to go through that process again, because if they did, then this community would kind of just cease to exist. It would no longer exist, and no one would be able to make money off of the community anymore. No one would be able to go to these conferences and talk about these wacky space adventures and extraterrestrials and aliens. That means that is all over. And they don't want that. They have to hang on to that because they've built their entire personality and their entire life around this narrative.
100%.
And if people don't believe that, they can believe whatever they want, but they have. A lot of these top speakers in the community have built their entire life and their foundation, especially people within the secret space program and the super soldiers. That's like all that they have. And it's just a coincidence. And this isn't me talking bad about anyone. I've struggled my entire life. I mean, I was not born into a rich family. I was not born into anything. I was moderately poor. But it's just interesting that all of the people within the secret space program and the super soldier people are dirt poor. They're living off of food stamps, which is, again, there's nothing wrong. I've been on the food stamps before in my life. Okay. I get it. I understand it. But it's another level when they're trying to create something that's going to give them a platform in order to make something of themselves and of their life, when it's based on a lie and it's based on a fallacy, to try and prop themselves up, to try and give them an audience, when there's so many different topics out there to discuss but they just double down on the secret space program super soldier narrative, hoping for some kind of praise, hoping for something to boost them up out of it's just a grift. It's a giant grift. It's like, well, why don't you go back and look into the occult, like study the occult, study serial killers, do whatever you can. There's a lot of other communities that you can get your foot in the door, and other than repeating nonsensical garbage that has no basis in reality.
I'm with you on that, man. I think, I mean, we see the profiteering and the grifting, constantly, especially with the fear mongers, the doomsday individuals. There's one offhand that I give a lot of shit. I'm not going to name names, but it's funny how he's constantly trying to get us ready for this cataclysm that's supposed to occur in the year 2040, when the sun's supposed to burp and micronova at the earth. But he's really getting people back into the bipartisan system. He wants you to vote Republican while he's preaching the doomsday cult on top of that. So I'm with you, man. I see the grift. Shane, what's your response on that?
Oh man, I think I forgot the question at this point.
Oh, it's all good. Sorry,
that was a long rant.
That put me in
it's all
directions.
No, it's all good. So So I mean, here we'll start off with you on this, man. So let's talk about the because this is something we've talked about a lot. Let's talk about the Trump Biden thing. That's currently at play right now. Do you think? I mean, and I'm sure you could probably answer this. Is this a form of MK Ultra that's going on with these two candidates? And if it is, would you please elaborate so the viewers can understand this? Because I feel like this is something I've been trying to say for quite some time, and nobody wants to hear it.
This is actually will help me because I can answer the last question too. Like I've been kind of doing this for a long time, and I have a story that doesn't have any verifiable proof for people. Like I can't, sit you down and be like, this is why I know it. But I don't rely on just that to speak, because I can still see the rest of the world and make sense of it, right? And but going all the way back, one of the first things before anyone had ever seen my face, and I thought that would never happen, someone was like, well, if you know so much, tell us something that we don't know. And I'm like, Donald Trump will be your next president, it's going to change everything, and things will never be the same again. And I elaborated to go on about how, like, basically, if you will accept that man as your president, they know they can do whatever they want to you. And, they're going to give you that first 4 years to see if you finally stand up and say, what the? And if you don't, then they're going to continue to be even more absurd. So what happened 4 years later? They put a corpse in his place, right?
And then Brandon.
Yeah, when I was watching that most recent debate, I was like, oh my goodness. Like, they really are just, it's almost like they're just performing a humiliation ritual on you all. Right. And that's kind of what it's like. I mean, they're literally abusing an old man on television. They're literally propping up a caricature of a human being on television, and they're making you vote for these two clowns, or one of these two clowns. It's the most ridiculous thing. And the insane cult worship on either side, from both sides. Both, like, when I say cult worship, it's the hate and the love. This is the tweet. I forget who actually said it, but it sounds something like, please, God, give me the Trump that the leftists have created in their delusional minds.
I don't remember who said it, but I saw the tweet. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I would repeat that, but or the Trump that the right wing has created in their delusional minds, because neither one of those two Trumps exist. For real, right? What we're actually dealing with is barely a human being. And I'm not saying like he's possessed by some demon. I'm saying that he's basically a cartoon, like a living cartoon. Like, there's not anything real there. He's just going to do what he has to do in order to be that caricature, right? And so the worship on both sides, the fear of him is ridiculous. I thought that he's going to somehow save you. Did you guys forget the first 4 years? And that he's going to kill us. Did you guys forget the first 4 years? It's like, dude, like, either side, they're both absolutely out to lunch. And I honestly didn't think they'd ever get this far. Like, I didn't think that people would get this far gone with all of this stuff. But that is how absurd it is it's crazy making. Right? Like, we hear about that expression when it comes from narcissists, but that scales up to sociopaths and even further to psychopaths. Crazy making is their game. And that's exactly what they've done to the public. And I like, because I never believed that they would pull this off, to see how stunningly they have, it's mind blowing to me. And
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, dude. I totally agree. I'm with you. I personally didn't think it was going to get this far, but the one thing they always said, for a while now, is even the most seasoned of us would be surprised at what happens. And I'll tell you at this point, there's no shortage of surprises when it comes to what's happening here. I'll tell you that. Ryder, what are your thoughts on that, man? Do you think that this is which is some kind of MK Ultra like hypnosis that's almost kind of hypnotizing the masses into this cult, like Shane was saying, this cult following, like losing their focus on what's really important and just drawing their focus onto these individuals?
Well, I just think that it's interesting that they really haven't built anybody else up on the Democratic side. There is nobody else, because as soon as the debates were over, everyone was like, they're going to replace Biden. They're going to switch him out in there with Kamala Harris is going to be up there, or Michelle Obama. She's going to swap in for Biden. I'm like, no, they're not. We got 4 months until the freaking election. Are you kidding me? you know how long Trump has been campaigning? He's been campaigning basically since he lost the election in 2020. That's how long he's been campaigning for presidency. You're telling me that they're going to bring somebody else in and they're going to fit almost 4 years of campaigning into 4 months? Are you out of your mind? That's not going to happen. And if it does, it just shows you how ridiculous of a country that we live in, that the leaders at the top really think that somebody that has only been running for president for 4 months can beat somebody that's been running for 4 years and that was president before. So that's a really big error on people's end. And that's another thing within the community. Everyone was immediately like, oh, they gotta have Biden step down, blah 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 blah. And that really actually influenced the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is also talking about it. And I don't think that they would have if all the big popular alternative media people were talking about it. They would have just kept on. They would have cut it all up, cut the bigot up into a way that people can not see the mental cognitivity of Biden, to kind of brush it off and run little bits and little segments on how Biden is so great. So I really think that was an influence from the alternative community that actually influenced the mainstream media in that narrative. But when it comes to Biden, he has zero. Well, before we get into that, I want to talk about this 2025 document, the stupid 2025 bullshit document that everyone's been, talking about. That freaking Stephen King has been retweeting that.
I can't stand him. I cannot stand him, dude. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's really a policy proposal of I think it's like around 1,000 pages for a incoming Republican, which that incoming Republican is supposedly going to be Trump. Right now, a section of it does talk about like abortion, like 3 sentences out of the 1,000 pages or whatever, and everyone's calling it like a document of hate, like it's Nazi Germany document, and it's but it deals with a lot of things. It deals with the finances, the culture, to the Republicans, to the Democrats, and the Democrats really hate it because they've I was at the gym yesterday, and obviously CNN and MSNBC is on the TVs at the gym, and it said under Operation Project 2025 to stack the Supreme Court justices, to overrule the Supreme Court justice. And I'm like, what the everything is just an agenda now. You got agenda 2025, you got agenda 2030. It's like they've just put it's an alternative. It's just the way that the alternative community has bled through into the mainstream community. But this 2025 thing has nothing to do with Donald Trump. It's not a policy.
Or the Republicans. Really.
It's not. Yeah, it doesn't have anything to do with the Republicans. It's not even a policy for an incoming president or even the Republican Party, right?
And they do it every 4 years. So it's, like, once again, looking at the foundation, it's not Trump's thing, it's the Heritage Foundation. So let's look at them. They've existed for a long time. They've done the same thing over and over and over again. Nothing's ever come from it because nobody takes them seriously, because they produce trash like that, right? And but like the media running with it like that is just beautiful, because it like I've been saying it with the alternative community for a long time, that we have a comprehension problem, that most people aren't comprehending what they're hearing. They're really just hearing the big sexy story. They're not really comprehending what's going on. And that's the same thing with that. It's like anyone who just reads it can comprehend this is a nothing burger, but people who don't know how to read that can't, right? It's very much like, it's not that I've never trusted scientists. I just know that a lot of them lie, and I know how to read science, right? But if you don't know how to read science, then you have to rely, and it's the same thing with politics. If you don't know how to read newspapers, then you don't understand. right? And what has been baffling me is the people on the left freaking out about the fact that they're no longer allowed to break their own laws, that their own Supreme Court justice has decided that they have to follow the law, their own constitution, and somehow that's a problem, and that guy is going to be a fascist. Like, I don't understand. It's like, it's one of the most narcissistic, like, I know you are, but what am I things I've ever seen. Like, you guys literally have spent the last 4 years breaking every law under the sun that you possibly can and bending the ones that you can't, all for your own political gain. And now you want me to worry that that guy's going to come in and do the same thing you guys are already doing? Like, it's just, I don't know what I'm supposed to be scared of.
It's gaslighting at its finest. That's
it
the
is.
definition of gaslighting right there.
Yeah. I call it the 5-year-old mentality. It's like a 5-year-old kid on the playground where they're with their friends, like me and my friends can do it, but you can't. Okay, like it's literally what it sounds like to me. I mean, we've all been there when we were younger. We were the kid who was like, I can do it, but you can't. And that's basically what it is. It's like we're looking at a collective that is like adorned this childlike mentality, like throughout like this whole situation. And it's almost as if like and my theory behind it is it's because what they do is they're consistently hitting the very deep emotional triggers of the collective with all of this stuff. And this is why this has happened, because, when you push enough buttons like that, you're going to have people throw any common sense and rational thinking out of the window. And you're going to have people just acting like a whole bunch of children, just emotionally immature children. But, one thing I want to ask you too, since we're talking about this, this has been a huge thing that's been going around, and I've kind of theorized it myself. Do you feel that some of the top people in the alternative media community are potentially instilled there to do what they're doing? Are they potentially some kind of actors of some kind, or are they instilled to keep the diversion of everything going on and everybody chasing their tails? I mean, what do you think about that?
I think it's a devil's advocate quote of, I just set the stage, you pull your own strings.
I like that.
Yeah. I think that's what has happened. It's what I've been saying about whistleblowers since Corey Good, was that like they don't need to put disinformation agents in there anymore. They don't need to mind control these people directly, because we have people who are just going to come along and do it themselves, right? And play those roles. And ever since I said that, we've had a parade of them, right? Like, I have a pretty public debate with one that I know Ryder knows too, and like, this is what we've had ever since I said that, because that's it. I think, and the same thing is true for even like a Joe Rogan. Like, I don't think that he needs a CIA handler sitting beside him telling him what to do. I think Joe Rogan's personality just fills in all of that hole for him, right? And I think the same thing with like a Candace Owens or a Tucker Carlson or a whatever the twin Krasenstein boys are, and like all these different other people on the left as well. Like, I don't think that they need to actually puppet these people, because what you said was true. They started hitting everybody here, right? And when we're really activated here, we don't use this at all. It's why in occult you're always going to bump into the trivia method, is because that's part of the mystery schools. It's almost the foundation of them, is to keep that in order of thought, feeling, action. Because when your feelings are in the way, you don't think properly. When your feelings are activated, all you're hearing is beep, and the only thing that can make that beep go away is Donald Trump or Joe Biden, whichever one you prefer, right? It's the only thing, because that's here, right? But while that's happening, we're not using this, and that's why they're being able to fill this for us. And our actions follow here, though, right? So if this is all activated, we're not listening, we're throwing our hands up in the air, they get to fill this, and then the trickle down ends up being the actions that they want us to take. And so it's playing on human nature and perverting the reward system so that people just do it themselves. And I'm sure Ryder can speak to that, because we see a ton of it in this community, right? With like just the individuals. Like, I don't believe for 1 second that, I don't know, I don't really like individual, like James Rink is being controlled by any type of handler. I think he's just a desperate man who doesn't have any identity outside of being a fake super soldier on the internet, right? Like if Shane the Ruiner went away for tomorrow, I'm fine. You know, I've walked away from this community for up to 2 years at a time, and I was perfectly fine. But these people can't say that. I've even challenged them. Why don't you step away for 6 months? I dare you. And they won't do it, right? And it's because they can't for that reason. And that's why they don't need to remote mind control us or send the CIA in, unless we're gigantic and really getting out of line, maybe. But at this point in time, there's too many different voices already that you don't really need to do that. Because even if Candace Owens starts running around saying that Bridget Macron's a woman or a man, sorry, like, you know, it's easy enough for people to just tune that out.
100%. And the one thing I want to say too that you summed up before we get to Ryder, no, you're absolutely right. We do it to ourselves, and that was, you know, one of the biggest things in 2020. You know, with the COOF and everything that was going on with that. They didn't have to police anything. Our own people policed each other. So like this is a good analogy for you know what you're talking about, Shane. We do it to ourselves. We can make ourselves crazy. We can police each other. I totally agree with that. Ryder, what are your thoughts, man?
It's just so interesting to me that they play both sides of the aisle, and that's what they've been doing for a really long time. They fund and they control both sides. They are the creators of the mis and disinformation and the deception, while on the other hand saying that we need to stop mis and disinformation and deception. Right? They're playing both ends of it, and I have it's just like that Vice article that I just posted about the other day on Twitter, and I showed on my show with Dana yesterday. Is saying that, you know, scientists are saying that if you research and you look into things, then that leads to conspiracy theorizing. Like, okay, well, what is involved in research? Researching just means that you're reading. So they're saying that if you're reading, then you're a conspiracy theorist. Well, how did they come to that conclusion? How did those scientists come to that conclusion that they had to have read some stuff, right? It's super. We just broke the matrix.
It's like that Chinese kid with the books going. Just shoving the knowledge off the page into his head. That's how they did it.
But
It's like that, though.
I have a clip though from Barack Obama that I have in the thing here that I want to everyone to listen to. I've played
Understand,
it with
it's not necessary for people to believe.
You tell me when you want me to hit it real quick, man. Sorry about that.
All good. I've played this with Shane. I played it with Andy a couple of weeks ago, and I think that it's just the best encompassing nature of everything that we've really been talking about here, and we can expand on it afterwards. But this just lays it all out there like perfectly, an amazing conspiracy burrito, an amazing cult burrito.
Sorry, and where he's saying this speech is important too, because it's the Cyber Policy Center, right? So it's about internet stuff. It's about social media. It's about what we do. So.
Yep.
Let's
Here we go.
it, man.
Let's roll on it.
Understand, it's not necessary for people to believe this information in order to weaken democratic institutions. You just have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage. You just have to raise enough questions, spread enough dirt, plant enough conspiracy theorizing that citizens no longer know what to believe. Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, in each other, in the possibility of truth, the game's won.
There it is. He just said it in the most perfectly elegant way. I mean, people can talk shit about Obama as much as they want, but man could speak. The man could get up there and give an amazing speech. He was very persistent and consistent in the way that he spoke, and it's wild that we transferred from that it's kind of like what Shane was talking about, from that to a reality TV star, and then into a bumbling idiot that obviously has a lot of mental problems and probably dementia and Alzheimer's.
He
When I said
potentially
about
pooped
Trump,
on stage. I was gonna say, what's that? Where he squatted over and he looked like he was pooping during that. What were you saying, Shane? Sorry.
before Trump, the Obama was a test too, because it was like, what happens if we put this guy who looks perfect and does all the wrong things?
Yeah.
Does anybody notice? Right? If he literally breaks every law that he could possibly break, he's literally killing your own citizens. He's, starting killing more people but he looks good. He sounds great, right? All of that. So it's okay. And the important thing that he said there, and there's different directions that we're getting to this, but not knowing what to believe. Right? People tend to give up at that point in time, and they just decide that they don't believe anything. And the other side that comes through the truth movement is that you can't possibly be sure of anything. There is no objective reality, right? Well, the end result is that that is the same, that you don't really believe anything. And when you don't have conviction in anything, you act like you don't have conviction in anything. And then you can be very easily steered around by either side of this political puppet stream, or the alternative community public strings, or whichever, because why? You can't know, right? You couldn't possibly know, but somebody must. So I'll just keep going where everybody else is going, as long as I like the smell of that room.
Yeah, that's exactly what is so interesting, because Andy brought this up in our conversation. He said that is exactly what Yuri Bezmenov was talking about in 1983, the KGB defector in 1983. We almost gave that identical thing that Obama just said. Like all the things that we just heard Obama talk about also is what Yuri Bezmenov said in just a different kind of words back in 1983. And I made a reel of it, and it's verbatim the exact same thing. Saying the same thing.
Wasn't that interview on the news, right? He was talking about how the KGB doesn't spend as much money in espionage as the United States thinks it does. If they wanted to take down a country, this is how they would do it over generations. Is it that interview? Am I correct about that?
Yeah, the subversion of an entire country, and the 4 steps to subvert a country: destabilization, demoralization, crisis, and then normalization. And he's, Yuri Bezmenov is like, hey, like if you create enough confusion, then that makes it to where no one no longer knows what to believe. They don't trust anyone. They don't trust their friends. They don't trust their family. They don't trust their neighbor. They don't trust their institutions. Exactly.
Themselves. That's the biggest one. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
That is a big one. No, I would completely agree with that. I think, I remember when I first saw that interview, probably like 10 years ago at this point. I really saw it, and it started to make sense in the aspect of what was going on, in my younger years. But like I've told Ryder before, I fell for the new age scam in the beginning. Luckily, I wised up and left that and understood that it was kind of a sham in and of itself. But no, same thing, man. You could even see it applicable to going on right now, even in the alternative community. And you can see this kind of applicable to everything. And, I think, kind of what we're hitting at here, guys, again, is like, we have to understand there is foundational principles in what's going on, as what Shane is saying, for sure. And, we have to know that we have to just use discernment. And the biggest thing you guys talked about too is, man, just fucking reading the goddamn paperwork. Like just to read it, dude, like I think really, and I think, it's kind of a vicious cycle too, because, if you look at the world today on how it's a double-edged sword. I think, yes, there's people taking advantage of it, but it's even us too. It's like you look at our day-to-day lives where a lot of people are so swamped and busy. That's where they're going to get their information. They're going to get their information from a 30-second reel, as opposed to looking up the actual document itself. And
which pisses me off so much, Stephen. It pisses me off so much that that's the case.
I'm with you because I'm a guy that too. I like to read things. I don't like to just, I like to look at papers and things like that and actually read over stuff. I'm with you on that.
It's just like people would rather, like, my short little reels and my short little clips like do so much better than my normal show does on
100%.
on everything. Dude, like I can post something on TikTok and get 1,000 views in like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm struggling to get 1,000 views on my regular show.
It
And
is.
I've
It's
been,
almost.
it's wild, and it like makes me want to just like stop doing it, but at the same time, I'm like, well, as long as it's getting out there in some way, and maybe one or two of those people out of those thousands of people that has watched this minute clip, maybe one or two of them check out the full thing, and that's worth it. I guess it's just really frustrating, and the way the platforms treat um, real solid information is ridiculous as well. They like my stuff should be just blowing everything out of the water, but it doesn't, and that's really discouraging as well. Because I know that it's good and it's been proven that it's good. I mean, I have videos on TikTok that have like close to 500,000 views. And I know the things that I put out is quality, and I know that it's really good, but it just does not want to be pushed because it's lumped in with all this nonsense garbage bullshit. You know what I mean?
I feel you on that, man. And I think, well, the one thing I've seen a lot of these platforms do, and I'm sure Shane can agree with me when I say this, they seem to pop up the what I call the limited hangouts, the sensationalists, and the fear mongers, and then just the individuals who are just really causing like a lot of hardcore division, even further. So that's what it seems like to me. And I feel you on that, Ryder, because it sucks when you have somebody. I mean, you have a documentary that's out on Amazon, and you've put a lot of work into what you do, and I can understand your frustration behind that 100%. But Shane, let's hear your thoughts on this as well.
Where to start? Where to start? I've said it all already.
I know.
We're going in circles because ultimately people aren't really looking for the truth. They're looking for a big, sexy story, and they've woken up to go back to sleep in a different dream. And from my whistleblower knowledge, the one thing that they told me over and over again was that I didn't think that they could do this, but they kept saying that they would make people want it. And today, that like every day, that's just ringing in my ears is like almost their laughter, because it does sure as hell seem to me like people want it at this point in time. Like they don't want freedom, they don't want truth, they want a comfortable lie that they can disappear into the multiverse with. And that's all a problem. And ideology is very important. And the ideology that the alternative community shares is the same ideology they fight against with the mainstream community, right? Like everything that most alternative community people will point to about the mainstream, they'll be like, this is wrong, this is wrong. You guys are doing the same thing, you're just doing it with a different flavor. Right? It's kind of like I've said, like super soldier, furry, explain to me the difference. In a lot of cases, there isn't one, right? And that's it's sad to see, but at the same time, we can do better, and I know that we can. And I've watched this community go through bad cycles before, and we'll bounce back from this one too, just like humanity always will, and so will we. But for now, we should be trying to be more disciplined, trying to be more responsible with what we're doing here, because like Ryder has said, we are the new media. Everybody, like even the audience, is part of the new media, and you have a responsibility now. And if what you truly want is truth and what you truly want is change, then make sure your actions prove that to the world instead of just your words.
I dig that, dude. And I think you're 100% right on that. And the one thing I want to say is, is the biggest thing we could be doing to change things is focusing on creating the existences that we truly wish and desire. That's one of the biggest things we can truly do to change things. And I'm with you on that too. It's almost as if, like, people wake up to go back to sleep in a different dream. It's not it's almost as if, I hear the laughter that you heard also, man, because I look at this today, like right in front of me, and I'm just like, holy shit. Sometimes, like, I do realize the magnitude. I look at it and I'm like, this is one hell of a wall. It's gotten a little bit big. It's gotten a little bit bigger over the past few years, so, but,
and stop thinking that everything is a freaking psyop. Everything's not a freaking psyop. Like, things happen. Like, things naturally occur in our reality. It's like the conspiracy and the truther community want to make it to where nature just doesn't nature anymore. Nature still natures. Nature has been naturing since the beginning of time. Okay. Natural things happen. That's just the way that it is. Okay. And people are so freaking black-pilled to the point that they can't see anything but a freaking psyop or some kind of controlled opposition. And that's why they attack each other. That's why they're always like this at each other all the time, 24/7. No one ever says, oh, hey, we should collaborate. We should like bring our minds together. We should come together on this and work together. And maybe we'll figure out something that we didn't know. Maybe we can actually get to the bottom of this. Maybe we can actually possibly change something. But instead, it's like we're just fighting with each other and butting heads against each other. No, I'm right. No, you're right. No, you're wrong. I'm right. I'm right. You're wrong. And it's like created this ridiculous type of back and forth within the community. And that's really the way that it's been for a really long time. And I 100% believe that that's done on purpose. That is done for a reason. And it's just unbelievable the way that you see people treat each other within the community. I'm like, whose side are you on, bro?
I know.
Like, whose side are you really? And then they're so jealous of other individuals that are doing better than they are doing, which makes absolutely no sense. We should be lifting these people up. We should be sharing their content. We should be putting out their content. We should be liking their content. We should be reacting to it. We should be commenting on it with good and positive things, even if you don't agree with them. Like me and Shane have talked about several times. I listen to people all the time that I don't like or that I disagree with, because maybe somewhere in that I can get a different perspective. Somewhere in that, my mind can possibly be changed by what somebody else says that I hadn't thought about before. And this whole idea is that if you disagree with someone, that means that you hate them or that you don't like them. That is not the case. What happened is like civil debate. There's people just like not debate anymore. And that's another thing that goes back to Trump. Trump turned the tides on freaking debating.
Oh, 100%.
He just got up there and just like insulted the shit out of Hillary Clinton, which
You'd be in jail.
Yeah, exactly. And everyone's Shah! It's like that Family Guy episode where Lois is running for mayor or whatever, and she just walks out there and says 9, 11. That's what it is. He changed the whole game. He turned it into an internet chat room in a legitimate presidential debate.
Well, and we changed the timeline because don't you remember Smokey the Bear said only dudes can start forest fires?
That wasn't in my timeline, bro. I don't what timeline is
in my timeline, it was Jew Yeti. Smokey never existed. There was no such thing as I'm telling you.
They're called Saskets people. Get it right.
Saskets people. But dude, Ryder, you hit a very good point, man, because like that's how I feel. I feel like we're all comrades here. I really do. Like I feel like, yeah, there's the same thing. There's people that I don't 100. I've had people on the show that I don't 100% agree with. I mean, there was a guy not too long ago. He was a great guy. It was a great conversation. Like, don't get me wrong, but like, didn't 100% agree with everything he was saying. But I still had respect for him. In the fact that he put this much work into this research, like, he did, he was very educated in what he was talking about. I mean, he opened my eyes to some things that, I had to go back and reevaluate. And I think that's true critical thinking Is it not? Like, I mean, it's true critical thinking.
Isn't that what this community was supposed to be founded upon? Was critical thinking and like common sense? Isn't that what this was
Exactly.
originally supposed to be? But yet it's not now anymore. Anytime anything happens that seems a tad bit like anything on the world stage, like within the hour, dude, people are on it. They're like, oh no, it wasn't really that. It was freaking aliens. It was mall aliens. I got a video recording that someone sent me that was there when at the mall in Miami that said that there were aliens. There was 12-foot tall aliens that were outside. That's why all the cops were rolling up. It's I don't know, dude. It's just so wild that there's not any time in between any of the stuff that comes out within the community. Like there's no like looking into it anymore. There's no critical thinking behind it anymore. It's just like, how soon and how fast can we push out this content after something happens? And inevitably, all of those people that push out that content as soon as it happens are all wrong. They're all wrong every single time because they don't have all the information. All the information has not come out about it. If they would have waited a week or maybe even a couple of days, they would realize that it was nothing like that. But that's not the goal. That's not the point. It goes back to the confusion aspect of this whole thing. And you flood the internet and the population with as much nonsense and garbage as possible all out at once. So it just confuses everybody on what to believe. The alternative community is the mainstream community for the people that don't believe in mainstream news and mainstream community. That's what it is.
100%, dude. No, and I remember the whole mall alien. You know, we had a lot of different aliens last year. We had cake aliens. We had mall aliens. We had
Vegas aliens. You don't remember the Vegas aliens?
No, I didn't even see. I know we had a plastic jug alien. Somebody thought a bleach bottle wasn't it at the dump was an alien skull or something like that, but it could have been a joke. But no, I did not hear about these Vegas aliens. Enlighten me. This is one I missed.
You didn't hear about the Vegas aliens, dude?
I don't think so, man. No.
Well, there's footage of it. You might be able to look it up. I don't know. You just type in Vegas.
Let me see. Yeah.
It's god awful footage. It looks like it was filmed off of a 2001 freaking flip phone Razor Nokia.
There's aliens over there. I'm gonna film them.
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. Let me see it. So was it like 2 months ago?
No, it was. I think that it was last year.
All right. So it says cops investigate alleged UFO crash and green colored alien sighting in Las Vegas.
I don't know if that's the one or not, but
I'll definitely have to look it up, man. But no, that's I'm surprised that slid by me.
Anyway, there was this aliens that apparently showed up in this family's backyard in Vegas, and the whole family was there, and they all whipped out like one person. The only one person that was videoing anything was in the very back of the group. There was a fence in between them and this entity or whatever, and all you see is like what kind of looks like a outline of a man. And like that's it, but the footage is so freaking blurry and so distorted that it's hard to make out anything. That's another thing that I've mentioned with Shane several times, and a lot of times on my show is like, why is all of the footage of anything weird or anything strange or freaking Bigfoot? Why is it all shitty footage?
It is. Yeah. It is. It's like it literally is. It's like the guy can't hold the camera straight for the life of him. Like, you know,
media later. I found some aliens. They're right here on the screen of my room. I hope everyone gets a really clear view of them.
I'm telling you, you want to know what though? The only clear video I ever saw of something, man. I was watching with my lady the other day. We've been watching the paranormal caught on camera just to kill time when we're hanging out in the evenings, and somebody actually got a Bigfoot video that was not, and like they actually had like a clear. I mean, it could have been a lot of different things, but still, I'm with you guys.
Were you talking about the one in Colorado?
Yeah. That was the one that they were showcasing.
That one was really interesting. Me and Shane did a whole show on it. That one was interesting because I mean, it could have been somebody in just a weird like hunting gear or whatever. But the thing that I found interesting that I brought up in the video was that the creature or the entity or the person or whatever, he sat down like he was trying to blend in with the shrubbery, which I thought was really interesting. That's what you would probably do. That's what animals do, is they try and blend in with nature. And like whenever they're stalking something, they'll try and blend in with the surroundings, the surrounding areas. So I thought that gave a little bit more legitimacy to it. But those people are actually from Wyoming, and their story seems to be legit. I don't know.
Who knows, man? That's the one thing too, is it's like I think because we're gonna start winding down. The best thing that I can lead off with is, man, after this whole conversation tonight, I got two very smart individuals sitting here who have done their research. They have looked at the things, they have put in the work. Like I said, Ryder has a documentary called JFKX on Amazon right now. Shane is a whistleblower, and he actually you have classes to teach people magic and other things, correct, as well, right?
I do, yeah. And what I define magic as, it's your relationship with yourself, your environment, and other people. It's not throwing fireballs.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's actually, to tie it into the secret space program, I put in, and I'm doing introduction calls for free for the rest of the summer if anyone's interested, because usually it's $60 for that introduction call because of secret space program people wanting to learn how to throw fireballs. But anyways,
I feel you guys.
I got a question for you really quickly, Shane. Ryan Burns was on my show the other day, and he was talking about this thing that's called the red right. And he said that it kind of came out of Michael Aquino, and which Michael Aquino started the Temple of Set. And apparently Michael Aquino was involved in this like ritual where he would essentially imbue his essence onto a pregnant lady that had the child has not been born yet, and he would do some kind of magic to like put his consciousness inside of the unborn baby, and then at some point, we would be guessing pretty close to the pregnancy, he then kills himself and then commits suicide, but his consciousness is now inside of that unborn child. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
I think there's a show that's very similar called Intruders. But yeah, there's not to say that it worked, but there's definitely a few cults out there who believe they can do stuff like that. And it's up for debate whether or not it works. And it definitely doesn't work 100% of the time. But yeah, it's a type of forced incarnation. It's possible, and it exists. Whether or not that gentleman actually was involved in it or just heard about it or saw Intruders is up for debate as well. But yeah, there's a lot of weird shit. All right, I'm not going to deny that. Sorry for my language on your show, but there's a lot of weird stuff. There's truth in almost all of it. And but all that noise is what's drowning out the truth of it. And the truth of it on both sides, whether it's our enemy or the powerful ones, the answer is human, and that's why people don't like the answer.
I can understand that 100%, and I like the way that you phrased that, because there is truth in this. It's not that you guys are coming up here and being like, all of it's not true. No, there's definitely very strange things that are happening. And like I said, Shane, you put it really well, that there's this noise, that's this background noise, or this background mental noise, or whatever we really want to call it, that's clouding out the discernment to look for that actual truth, as opposed to just believing what's handed to us, in TikTok videos and what's on, the X feed or things like that. So, well, guys, let me tell you this. It was a real pleasure having you two on. It was great to have you both here at the same time. So I do have Ryder. I have your YouTube link and your Apple Podcasts link in the description. Shane, I have your YouTube link. But if you two want to announce where they can find you guys outside of that before we close out tonight, man, so everybody can go and check out your stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on YouTube at Raised by Giants and in all podcast platforms at Raised by Giants. And check out my documentary JFKX on Amazon Prime. If you're inside of the United States, if you're outside of the United States, check it out on Vimeo. It's up on Vimeo as well and on Tubi. So you can watch it on Tubi. I think Tubi goes to a couple of different countries. And I am currently working on documentary number 2, which is going to be amazing and blow everything out of the water. So, really looking forward to that. Thanks for having me on, Stephen, and thanks for being on here, Shane. Once in a lifetime podcast that we just did, my friend, and I very much enjoyed it. Been wanting to do one like this for a while, and then Shane, Stephen hit me up and was like, "Yeah, let's do this bad boy." So, very much enjoyed it. Thank you.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. And Shane, where can everybody else find you aside from your YouTube channel? I know you're on all social media as well.
Yeah, if you do the linked tree URL after the /Shane_Sador, like it's written on the screen there, if they see that, but with an underscore underneath between Shane and Sador, you'll find all my links there. I don't really post to public YouTube anymore because of the community. And I have a paywall that's there more like a gatekeeper than a money-making thing, because I don't really make a ton of money off of it. I just don't want to have to answer everybody's absurd questions. So I like intelligent questions.
I totally understand, man. I totally understand. If you two want to stick around for just a second, guys, I want to thank you all for joining me for another BG Cast Wednesday Live podcast. I think this was a very insightful conversation with Ryder Lee and Shane here. I think really what this really says to us is we need to use discernment. I mean, this is something I hit home so much is discernment at all-time high right now. Discernment is key. And do not let the noise cloud out what is truly there for you to see. And that is really the best thing that I can leave you all with, guys. I'll be back next week with Raphael. He's going to be coming on to discuss kind of a similar topic, some of the misinformation in the conspiracy community at this time, as well as some other occult stuff we're going to get into. And other than that, you guys have yourself a wonderful night. Take care, everybody, and thanks for joining us.